can we talk about you as a person? So
We've
we're
got to
talking about
talk running.
we
We've
have
got to
got to
talk
we
running,
have got to
Damien, to be
talk.
honest. I mean,
Well, I don't want to talk football. I don't want to talk football after recent results. So yeah, let's talk running.
Yeah, let's
to talk just a
definitely.
little bit of football. I'm just going to let you know
No.
Aston Villa have got through to the semi-finals on
Oh,
penalties. The score is down
Ooh.
here. They have done it. But no, running. I just want to go into just some of the things you could tell us first. But looking at this is off your website, if we can call it that. That's what we're going down. Cotswold Way Century, 102 miles. The Spine Race, UTMB, Dragon's Back Race. One of the races all the listeners are going to have definitely heard of. More recently, Barclay Marathons. You've entered some absolutely, I would say, beasts of races. What is it like to put yourself through those, first of all?
Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, I did this sort of first half marathon in 2011, and just thought, oh, this running stuff's great, isn't it?
you were
And before
30,
then, I was
36, I believe, when you first
yeah,
started.
36.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before then, I'd just play football. Sort of recreational. I was pretty bad. Think of a sort of a less effective Alexander Hleb, if you can remember him.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
36
I've
and
got-
less effective at football. You sound a lot like Rob. There's
Yeah,
still
well,
hope yet, Rob.
yeah.
but yeah, loved this first half marathon, and yeah, signed up right away for next year, and had already signed up for my first marathon. Um, but around that time, within that sort of year, I realized some people ran on trails and some people ran much, much further. And I was just automatically intrigued by that. Like, what does that feel like? Especially, I suppose, 100 miles. You mentioned Cotswold Way Century. That was my first 100 miler, I think 2013. I was just, and I live, I grew up in the Cotswolds, so that was kind of home territory, which helped. But I was intrigued, really just fascinated. Like, what does that, wow, people run 100 miles. What on earth does that feel like? And can I do that? I've no idea, but I'm open to trying. And I just found every time I did something like that, I absolutely really loved it. And just I suppose the feeling of finishing, but also very much the feeling of doing it as well, more so. I guess the camaraderie, the scenery, the amazing aid stations. I always think of them as like children's birthday parties without the children or the balloons. You know, I'm sure we've all, any parents listening to this, you've been to a 5-year-old birthday party and really you've wanted to really tuck into all their food, especially if you did a long run earlier, but you can't because it doesn't go down well. But that's what the aid stations are like, really. And yeah, and I just wanted kind of, once you do 100 miles, I was just intrigued, well, what does the next distance feel like and the next distance? Yeah, just really fell in love with it. And hasn't worn off sort of 12 years later.
Is it an element of let's see how far I can push this body of mine and see how many miles I can cover in a given time, or what drives you on to keep doing that? Is it just the love of running, or is it that little bit of see how far we go?
I think it's definitely an element of adventure as well. I'm more into races that I suppose are in more dramatic scenery or mountainous. It doesn't mean I never do other races, but yeah, I mean I love say Tour de Gion or UTMB. They're up and down mountains, which adds. A friend of mine said, yeah, if you're going to hurt, you might as well hurt somewhere spectacular.
Good point.
Although sometimes those spectacular places add to the hurt a little bit. Yeah, so it's adventure. I mean, the running's important and that makes you feel good and feel bad sometimes too. But I remember being, when I was younger, really fascinated in say, I don't know, Scott of the Antarctic and his story and things like that. I was always interested in endurance, I suppose, like journeys of prevailing, against the odds and really tough physical and mental conditions. I mean, obviously, yeah, running 100 miles is nothing like what they went through, but you can almost do it in a safe, playful way almost. There's still a big challenge to you personally. So over time, yeah, I think the longest run I did was 630 miles on the Southwest Coast Path. And obviously you do stop and sleep there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I think 10 or 11 days of just running every day. And by that stage, I guess I'd realized you kind of can, as long as you sleep sometimes and keep getting the food in and don't get injured, you can carry on kind of indefinitely. And people, you know, people do run around the world and run from, that guy just ran across Africa, didn't he?
Yeah, the hardest geezer, yeah.
Yeah.
Tempted by that or not?
So, sorry?
Are you tempted by that or not?
I'm
Taking a
not
continent
sure.
and running.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I must admit, well, yeah. I'll play the children's card there. I just hate to be away from the children for that long. That's it's not that I'm scared of that challenge.
I mean, he's running away from something, surely, to do that.
Yes. But yeah, and I think at first it was the distance, just the curiosity and fascination of what's it like, what does it feel like, and could I do it? And then honestly, if you're on the start line with just that sense of wonder and curiosity, I mean, it is possible. Most of these things are possible for most people. We go pretty slowly, and then we just eat a lot. And it's not too much more complicated than that.
So when you won the Spine, so 268 miles in 84 hours, 36 minutes, 24 seconds. How much sleep did you actually get in that period of time? Was it much sleep or?
With that one, I'm pretty sure I've developed, a little bit of a sort of strategy in that most of the time going through the first night is okay.
Yeah.
You know, a few strong cups of tea and so on. But the second night is where things start to get pretty wobbly. You know, hallucinations can start and so on will start for me anyway, if I don't get some kind of sleep on the second night. So I've done the Spine a few times. Usually I'm out for 3 nights and I'll have some kind of sleep on the second and third nights, but that might only be 45 minutes. I think that year I did two times 45 minutes, I think, roughly. So yeah, and I've heard a sleep expert say that going without sleep for a night is like a mild concussion. So I think I'm just getting more and more stupid. And I'm kind of like a boxer who's never actually hit anyone. Who's just been hit around the head quite a lot. So yeah, I think I just get more dumb and then just think it's a good idea to sign up for another one.
So you talk about hallucinations. So when you did the Spine, you were hallucinating. Was that auditory hallucination? Wait, as a psychiatric nurse, you piqued me interest talking about hallucinations. Was it auditory hallucinations or visual hallucinations?
Oh well, I'm glad I've got you actually, because the first few times it would be very visual hallucinations. I was led off path by some sort of red Chinese lanterns that I was really convinced were being set off by people to help to lead me in. And I was horribly off course by the time I'd realised. At the Tour de Gion, which is a 200-mile race in northern Italy, I saw lots of inflatables. So like inflatable sharks and inflatable penguins, particularly, and then the Michelin Man, which was strange. But then at the Barkley Marathons, I've had the audio thing for the first time, where partly there's a lot of rivers there actually, but I always heard it as music or people chatting, and then you'd really stop and you go, there's no one there. But the thing that happened to me at the Tour last year was, I sort of forgot who I was and what I was doing, and that was a bit more interesting. Apparently I came into my crew at an aid station and it's weird. Yeah, I knew I couldn't remember the name of my race, and I think I asked if I was in a race, and I actually said I came to a pathway, a crossroads of 5 paths, and they all led to infinity, and I was quite convinced that had happened to me. And yeah, I really had a strong feeling of I don't know who I am anymore, which was quite a new one. Can you shed any light on any of that?
Please do, Rob.
Yeah, running. I think that is exhaustion. It's really simple to explain. It's just exhaustion and the lack of, and I suppose being on your own as well. That can have really weird side effects. So a lot of people talk about being on your own, and if you're on your own for a long period of time, you start to make things up in your own head. And it's if you're thinking about something, that's when you start to see things. So you must have been thinking about the Michelin Man at some point, or something that caught your eye. You thought when you're running past it, you must have been caught your eye thinking, "Oh, that looks like the Michelin Man," and then it must have manifested itself in your head. Auditory hallucinations are quite common with anything really. You can always think, "Oh, somebody just said something," but it's not. It's just your mind saying that it is somebody saying something. But
and it's almost, I think at that time also I did quite want to see other people.
Yeah.
So that probably, but I've remembered one more thing actually. My first Tour de Gion, I got a lot of deja vu.
Okay.
And I was convinced I'd been there before, and I really hadn't. But I had this strong feeling of, it was annoying when I was here last time as well. This hill was a difficult climb last time, and I would start thinking, when was I here? I haven't been here. When was I here? But I had that feeling for hours and hours and hours, and it was quite unsettling after a while. And I did actually chat to another nurse about it, and they thought it was some kind of protective thing. My mind was trying to protect me in some way.
Yeah.
But it was almost like I actually had the thought, maybe I can't make new memories anymore. Maybe I'll be stuck in this. So it was a bit unsettling. I just needed to sleep.
Yeah, sleep sleep is one of the biggest cures. So when you are on your own, talking about being on your own, what kind of things other than hallucinating, obviously, what other things do you think of? What other things do you do? Do you set yourself tasks? Do you set yourself targets? Because I spoke to a couple of people about it, and they go on long runs. They say, right, okay, then I'll count how many times I go past, I don't know, a red car, for example, if they're on a road, or how many times I go past a tree with 5 branches separating it. What do you do them kind of things, or?
I tend to try and stick in music or podcasts.
Listen to this one now, hopefully.
Of course, yes. This will be my next race. I'll listen to this. Yes, yes. In fact, on that spine race that I won, I don't know if you listened to the Guardian's Football Weekly podcast, but I thought I'd catch up on the football. Like, yeah, because the race was that long that I think I knew the result. It was actually an Arsenal Tottenham weekend, but I thought, yeah, I want to listen, and we won. And I thought, yeah, I want to hear their analysis of that game. So I stuck in a couple of podcasts. So I think hearing people talk helps me. I think something you can engage in a bit, but isn't obviously not too taxing. Yeah. I've got a friend who, he listened to a whole audiobook during a race, kind of thing. I find that pretty useful. I know other people maybe even phone friends. Obviously, it helps if you're from a different time zone, and then you can sort of phone them in when they're awake. I think they're reasonable tactics. I mean, often a power nap is what you need, and they can be very, very effective, as you probably know. 10 or 15 minutes actually can reboot you for 3 or 4 hours, maybe even longer. So a combination of those things, plus making sure you're eating enough, plus maybe sticking a bit of caffeine in.
In terms of, we've got a particular listener that is doing some, or has been doing some absolutely incredible running lately. He's running long distances at all hours of the day, waking up in the middle of the night to do runs to train for an event that he's doing. I think it's the Backyard Ultras.
Backyard Ultra,
if I'm not mistaken. So in terms of training, if I were to pick, say, for instance, the most sort of famous race on your list that most of the listeners would have heard of, Barkley Marathons, how do you train for that?
Well, in most cases, I would say, and most of my work is coaching runners. I would say, don't worry about that event until about 8 weeks out. Don't think about it. But in our training, we're just going to try and boost your economy. We're going to try and get you, for want of a better phrase, as fit as possible. Almost do kind of marathon training, so that there's definitely some speed work in there. I really encourage strength work. For most people, if they're injury free and they've got the time, ideally we're running, I suppose, six times a week. Definitely one full rest day, but kind of marathon training, not too different to marathon training. There's a reason that sort of structure is pretty universal and seems to work for most people. But then about 8 weeks out, depending a bit on the race, we'd try and get really, I suppose that's when we get specific to that race. So long runs will probably get a bit longer. I'm not into too many epic long runs, but they're gradually, progressively grow. There might be a couple of back-to-back long runs, but not kind of probably not even sort of 2020. Often it might be a 20 and then a 16 mile, or maybe 22, 18, something like that. Depends a bit what they're doing. And then also, I guess we're looking for similar terrain if we can. And often I'm coaching people, I suppose, who are trying to do something in mountains or somewhere lumpy, and they're somewhere flat, which is a puzzle I quite enjoy. So we're trying to mimic that as much as we can. I mean, sometimes with the spine you mentioned, I mean, there's a horrendous kit list for the spine. You actually have to carry a lot with you, and people might have heard of the same Marathon des Sables as well, things like that, where you have to carry a lot of kit. You might bring that in right at the end. I would say, you don't need to be doing that for months on end, but close to the race is when you get you know, allowing for some taper, but those other weeks is when you get much more specific, and the longer runs are the key runs. Also, tummy training, you know, the fueling is very important. So I would say on those last few long runs, practice with some of the foods you might use, and yeah, just practice fueling for several hours, and trying to make that a habit. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Got a
Agree
couple
with
of
that, Rob.
questions. Yeah,
You're venturing into ultra running, so you made your notes.
yeah. I was just all I heard on that was not too many long runs. No back-to-back long runs. If you are going to do it, 20 mile and a 16 mile, which is mad to me. But anyway, so I've got a couple of questions from a couple of listeners that have contacted us. So Kieran Bedford, who is a local runner to us, who is a really good runner, he's asked, can you ask Damian about his battles with the local lad from Stone, Jack Scott?
No, don't want to talk about it.
As I had a really good battle in the winter spine race in 2023.
Don't want to talk about it. Jack is a Stoke City fan. Yeah, Jack's well, I'd like to think a great friend, and although it didn't feel that way in the race. So yeah, Jack soundly beat me. So well, yeah. So the previous year, last year's spine race, I beat Jack only just, and then he came back this year and totally whopped my ass, and beat me and absolutely thrashed the course record. I forget exactly whether it was 10 hours or maybe even 12. Really, you know, astonishing performance. It really was. And I can say that because I saw some of it, and I know the race very well, and yeah, I know what he did and how hard that is. And I broke, you know, I broke the old record, and he was still, I think, 10 hours ahead of me. So like that was, I mean, conditions were favourable, but still, it was stunning. So yeah, no, I like Jack a lot. We've had training runs together. I say I like Jack a lot. I didn't like him those couple of days. But yeah, we've had training runs together, and I think we will again in the future if he doesn't mind waiting for me a little bit at the top of the climbs. But yeah, no, he's a great lad.
Good. Thank you for answering that. And another question we've got is from Giovanni. He asks, a question for your next for Damian, next week's guest is: I get a very bad imposter syndrome when running, like I'm not a proper runner, as my self-esteem is low, and I was always the fat kid. So how do I overcome the mental battles within myself? And I suppose similar to me, I get imposter syndrome. I've never been a runner. I've only started running about 2.5, 3 years ago. So I always think to myself, I'm not really a runner. I just go out and run. So how do you have them?
You just did a marathon, man.
Yeah, I know, and I know, and also Giovanni has as well. So he is a runner. But how do you have them battles? And I suppose, is there any advice you can give to Gio?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I certainly get imposter syndrome in other areas of life. Even if I'm honest, yeah, even talking about coaching. I mean, I've been a full-time coach for 3 or 4 years, and I still kind of think, oh, do I, you know, can I even call myself a coach? So I would say, I imagine it's far more common a feeling than most people think. I think, you know, running is one of the most welcoming communities I know of, and I don't think I heard someone talking about going to the gym the other day on a podcast about, like, we're all worried what people in the gym will think of us. And actually, I think it's fair to say no one really cares that much. Like, they don't really care what you're doing. And I kind of think it's similar in running. I mean this in a nice way. Like,
Yeah,
if you're there running, you're a runner. Like, you know, I don't really care how long you've been running. I mean, it's a nice conversation to have, but I don't really care if you've only been running a few months or whether it's been years. I don't care whether you run half marathons or 100 milers. Like, you're still a runner to me. You know, I don't. Yeah, in the nicest possible way, I don't care. I need a better phrase for that, but yeah, in the nicest possible way, I don't care that much. It's you know,
I think it's a good catchphrase. It's a good catchphrase.
It is. And I think you're right. We've had somebody say the exact same thing when they don't go out running until it's nighttime when it's dark because they don't want people seeing them. But the answer to that, when I said, is, well, if people see you, and I get mocked because I'm quite tall and I run quite heavy-footed, and people say, well, here comes Bigfoot and things like that. But I don't care because I'm doing more than they're doing.
I haven't shouted that in a long time.
But it is true though. You're out there doing something that the other person potentially isn't doing, and they're probably jealous of what you're doing. So thanks for that question, Gio. And in the nicest possible way, we don't care. What are you doing?
I hope that came across all right.
No, yeah,
when you're
definitely.
talking there's a great poem. Have you heard of the poem? I've got it on my wall here. The man in the man in the arena. Have you heard that
No,
poem?
no.
I suggest either you two or it's Giovanni, was it?
Yeah, Giovanni. Yeah.
Look it up actually. Just type in the man in the arena poem, and it starts. It's not the critic who counts, nor the man who points out how the strong man stumbles. But it's exactly what you're saying. It's a poem about, well, you're the one doing it actually.
Yeah.
You're the person doing it. So yeah, welcome. Everyone's welcome, I think.
We asked the same question to every guest, and
Oh.
it's going to be really weird question asking you this question because you've done ultra marathons and you've done more than ultra marathons. So, what are your PBs for 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, ultra marathon, 268 milers, 600 milers?
Oh yikes! Yeah, it's been a little while since I thought about this stuff. So yeah, I am 48 now. So PBs are, I don't want to admit to myself that PBs might not happen, but they haven't happened for a while. So 5K, I think I've only done a couple of 5Ks, but I was about 17 and a half minutes, I think. Of course, I believe I can and will be quicker at some point. 10K, I'm not sure whether it's 33 or 34 and a half. I think it's on the power of 10. I'd have to look that up. My local caution 10K. Half marathon, I've run this time twice, so I know that one. That's 1:16 at the Bath half twice. And the fact I've run that twice probably means it probably is the best I can do. Marathon 2:38, and that was at Manchester, but a few years ago. And ultra marathon PB. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, well, I did have them for what have I got a record for? No, most of my records have been broken by other people, especially fast young people. So it's quite annoying.
Jack Scott being
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
No, we won't mention him again. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Damian. Really insightful, and I would advocate everybody going out and buying your book. Either listen to it, probably not in the car like I was, but listen to it via Audible or via however you listen to your audio books, or buy the copy as well. There's some nice pictures as well. I bought the book and it came, and my 5-year-old son came over to me whilst I was looking at the pictures, and he said to me, "Daddy, you need to read the book, not just look at the pictures." So I was like, "Yes, I will be reading it." And there's some interesting pictures in there of how we can repair and knit shoes to make them better again, rather than having to buy and replace. So thank you for coming. And there's a picture of you sat in a mountain of trainers as well. So,
Oh gosh.
Where was that?
Well, yeah, my friends, the guy I mentioned, Dan, the ultra runner, Dan Lawson, he and his partner did have a sort of, they were never technically a charity, but they were trying to, I suppose, rehome lots of trainers and free race t-shirts actually. And it was them that sort of sounded the alarm first of all, that I heard them talking about it and was like, oh gosh, there's a problem here. But they had this little warehouse down in Sussex, and it was just full of shoes and t-shirts, and they have moved, I believe all of them on to, charities and such like. But Dan is well worth a follow on Instagram actually. I think it's rubbish shoes. So he experiments and he sort of makes new shoes out of sticking together previous shoes, but he's been breaking records for several years, always wearing secondhand shoes and secondhand clothes. So that's Dan Lawson. He's worth looking into. But yeah, it was visiting them, so that was a bit depressing again. Yeah,
it's one of them pictures you look at and you think, I can almost smell what that smells like.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't smell that great. Yeah.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Thank you for coming on, Damian. Really appreciate your time. And like I say, definitely I'm going to make that pledge to become a green runner, and I'm definitely going to make a pledge to look at the way that I run. Say that again.
Turn vegan.
Well, potentially. There's always hope.
I'll keep an eye on him for you.
There's always hope. To be honest with you, when I said that Damian was coming on, I anticipated me turning into an ultramarathon runner. But this is completely thrown me because I am potentially going to be turning vegan as well as becoming an ultramarathon runner. So
You don't have,
Last-
yeah. I mean, part of the message is, yeah, if everyone just did a bit less, they don't all have to sort of go to that extreme. But yeah, come and join us. Yeah, anyone who's listening, please come and join the Green Runners. But also, if you haven't tried an ultramarathon, by all means, come and join in that as well. It occasionally hurts, but is mostly brilliant, and you get to eat a lot of cake.
And the last thing I want to say is I love the word, and I have to put a bleep in this because it's normally Ben that have to put bleeps in for, but the word that you use throughout the book, kerfufflefuck. I absolutely love that word. So yeah, we'll end the podcast interview on kerfufflefuck. Thank you very much for coming in, Damian.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.